They thought your suffering was entertainment. There was a time when all you wanted was peace, a quiet life, simple dreams, a heart that remained soft even in a hard world. But softness in a world full of wolves is not innocence. It is bait. They didn't just ignore your wounds. They celebrated them. They clapped when you stumbled. They smirked when you shattered. They leaned closer, not to help you up, but to see if you'd break just a little more, a little louder, a little deeper, because pain feeds the insecure. Your hurt was a drug they never had to pay for, and they enjoyed every dose. You were the punchline when all you wanted was peace. They laughed because cruelty was cheaper than courage. Mocking you cost them nothing, but in their small minds, it made them feel taller. You know the type. Smiling eyes with venom behind them. Hands that clap for your failure but never lift for your survival. People who preach loyalty and love but vanish when storms come. They didn't just ignore your pain, they applauded it. Fake friends, plastic souls, porcelain loyalty that shattered the moment you needed it. They never asked if your heart was breaking. They only checked if the show was good, if the tragedy was dramatic enough, if your fall made their dull existence feel spicy. And when you laid awake at night, staring into darkness, searching for reasons, the silence was a blade. Every quiet minute cut deeper. Every unanswered message burned colder. Every broken promise turned another piece of you into stone. The world clapped as your hope cracked under weight. Hope, a fragile thing, a glass bone in a body built for war. You held on to it until your fingers bled, until even your tears felt heavy, until breathing felt like begging. Every silent night sharpened your bones like steel in cold water. You didn't scream, you didn't explode, you didn't collapse in public like they expected. No, you dissolved slowly, quietly, painfully, turning into something they didn't see coming. Remember how they laughed, not because you were weak, but because they feared who you would become if you ever rose. They saw a spark, a fire waiting to happen, a storm quietly breathing in the corner of the room. They tried drowning it in humiliation. They tried burying it under jokes, gossip, silence, and distance. They tried convincing you that you were small, unworthy, irreplaceable. But here's the truth they never understood. Silence is not surrender. Silence is incubation. Silence is where demons evolve. Silence is where kings sharpen their crowns. Silence is where the forgotten prepare their return. And in that silence, you learned. You learned how pain whispers lessons that comfort never could. You learned what darkness really is. Not evil, but evolution. Not death, but rebirth. You learned that loyalty is rare, betrayal is common, and love is a battlefield more fatal than war. You learned that weakness is only a temporary stage for the destined. Caesar trusted his Senate before they carved history into him. Brutus didn't strike a back. He crowned a legacy. Rome didn't remember the betrayers. Rome remembered the empire. Every betrayal is a crown placed on a future ruler's skull. And your crown was forged in silence. Not gold, but scars. Not jewels, but lessons. Not spotlight, but shadow. You kept walking while they laughed. You kept breathing while they gossiped. You kept dreaming while they mocked. And that patience, that quiet patience, was your greatest sin in their eyes. Because in a world built on noise, silence terrifies. Silence exposes guilt. Silence makes cowards choke on their own reflection. And now they look at you differently. Not because you're louder, but because you're quiet. Not because you lost, but because you endured. And endurance is the one thing they never prepared for. They thought you were fragile. But fragility is only a stage before steel, before fire, before rebirth. They expected you to stay broken. They never planned for your resurrection. They never imagined that the same silence they gifted you would become the weapon you sharpened. Hear them now. The same mouths that laughed now stumble for words. The same eyes that rolled now follow your shadow. The same hearts that mocked now beat a little faster when you enter the room. They laughed then. They whisper now. Because whispers are what fear sounds like when it's trying not to be heard. You are not what they expected. You are what they deserved. A reminder, a reckoning, a silent storm wearing human skin. Pain didn't break you. It carved the monster they deserved. Silence became your workshop, and hate became your hammer. They thought quiet meant weakness. They thought absence meant defeat. They thought distance meant disappearance. Fools never understand evolution. Silence was not surrender. Silence was surgery. A reconstruction done in the dark. You weren't hiding. You were sharpening. Carving marrow into metal. Breaking yourself into bone dust. And rebuilding with granite resolve. Pain trains in ways love never can. You learned what they never teach. How to bleed without begging. How to suffer without noise. How to walk alone without collapsing. You learned the sacred art of self-resurrection. No applause, no hand on your shoulder. Only concrete, cold nights and clenched teeth. You earned your rebirth the hard way, not through comfort, but through cruelty endured. They say broken bones heal stronger, but bones are simple things. Hearts do not heal. Hearts evolve. Broken bones heal. Broken pride transforms. Because pride does not return to what it was. It becomes something sharper, harder, untouchable. You stopped screaming. You started calculating. Your tears dried into strategy. Your sobs hardened into silence. Your hurt became fuel. Burning clean, burning cold. Rage was no longer fire. It was ice. Controlled. Precise. A blade instead of a bomb. And that is what scared them most. The shift. The quiet shift. The disappearance of desperation replaced by a new hunger, not to be saved, but to rise. Because revenge isn't rage. Revenge is discipline, wearing a quiet smile. Not loud, not messy, disciplined, surgical, patient. Real vengeance is not delivered in chaos. Real vengeance is delivered in silence, with perfect timing. When the world least expects your return. Empires don't rise by being liked. They rise by being inevitable, unavoidable, unforgivable. You stopped wanting to be understood. You started wanting to be undeniable. You stopped seeking hands. You started building wings. Every scar became a blueprint. Every failure, a brick. Every insult a nail holding your resolve together. Every lonely night a lesson. Every betrayal a blessing wearing poison perfume. You didn't drown. You learned to breathe underwater. You didn't starve. You learned to feed on ambition. You didn't beg. You became the storm that prayers fear. They thought silence meant surrender. They mistook stillness for sleep. They mistook patience for paralysis. They mistook reflection for defeat. But silence was your forge, and you were the metal inside it, melting, reforming, hardening into something they never prepared for. Something that can't be bent, broken, or bought. The world taught you in the harshest language. Pain is tuition. Loneliness is training. Rejection is guidance disguised as cruelty. You didn't rise because they lifted you. You rose because they left you. You rose because nobody believed you could. You rose because the grave they dug felt more like a throne waiting to be reclaimed. You saw what others refused to see. To conquer your demons, you must become one that hunts them. The phoenix myth is wrong. You don't rise from ashes glowing gold and hopeful. You rise charred, silent, and merciless. Not a bird reborn, a weapon sculpted by fire. They waited for you to fade. You studied them quietly instead. You watched weakness crawl in their smiles. You noticed fear begin to flicker behind their eyes. Because once you taste solitude without breaking, you become dangerous, untouchable, a storm with no master, a blade with no sheath. They thought they were burying you. They were planting you, and roots grown in darkness tear stone apart when they surface. Every night you stood on the edge of collapse. You built endurance. Every morning you woke with heaviness. You built discipline. Every time the world turned away, you learned that gods are born in isolation, not applause. Let them laugh at first. That is the tradition. Let them doubt. That is their instinct. Let them whisper. Desperation always hides behind whispers. But when you return, not seeking validation, but claiming destiny, their laughter dies in their throats. They look at you differently now, not with mockery, with caution, with uncertainty, with a fear they try to disguise, but can't. They know something changed. They feel something shifting. They see the storm in your silence, and deep down they know you are not destroyed. You are redesigned. They mistook your quiet for defeat. Foolish creatures, because they never understood that the universe hides its sharpest weapons in wounded souls. You didn't return to fit in. You returned to rise above, to rule your hunger, not hide from it, to command your fate, not beg for it, to be the storm, not the survivor. You did not turn cruel, you turned necessary. True terror isn't a scream, it's the quiet breath before the storm. There comes a moment when pain no longer trembles, it focuses. When despair no longer suffocates, it sharpens. Your silence did not stay still. It evolved. It turned from emptiness into edge, from quiet into calculation, from sorrow into strategy. You stopped waiting to be saved. You learned the brutal truth. No one is coming. No hero. No hand. No soft voice whispering comfort in the dark. So you became the hand. The savior, the storm. You carved power out of solitude, piece by piece, breath by breath, scar by scar. You learned to breathe without air, to walk without applause, to grow without permission. They once smirked when you were silent, but now that silence carries weight, It enters rooms before you do. It speaks louder than your old cries ever did. You became something else. Not angry, not broken, not desperate. You became controlled, cold, stable like a charged blade, because chaos is loud. Power whispers, and whispering terrifies more than roaring ever could. Look how they observe you now, carefully, nervously. The same eyes that rolled now hesitate. The same mouths that mocked now measure their words. You didn't need revenge to make them regret. Growth did the work. Silence did the cutting. Elevation did the haunting. They feel your arise like pressure in the air before lightning strikes. They sense it in your stillness. You don't react anymore. You strategize. You don't explode. You execute. You don't chase. You attract. You used to crave validation. Now you choose distance. You used to seek love. Now you observe loyalty like a scientist studying weapons. People applaud strength in public, but fear quiet strength in private, because silence leaves them alone with their conscience, and guilt speaks louder than anger ever could. You are no longer the child begging to be seen. You are the shadow they pretend not to notice, because acknowledging you means acknowledging their mistake. Every lonely night turned into armor. Every ignored call became clarity. Every fake friend became fuel. You walk calmer now, because storms do not brag about thunder. They let lightning announce them. And your lightning is coming. You learn to detach without bitterness, to walk away without weakness, to elevate without explanation. Growth turned into a weapon, not for destruction, but for dominance. Power is quiet. Confidence is silent. Strength doesn't roar. It simply stands, unshaken, unbent. People chase noise to feel relevant, but relevance lives in silence. Influence is quiet. Threat is quiet. Evolution is quiet. Every scar became a blueprint. Every memory became motivation. Every dark day became a lesson. Pain stopped hurting. It started instructing. And now, you move differently. Not rushed. Not hungry for attention. Not desperate for belonging. You became your own council, your own army, your own kingdom, and the world senses it. They gossip about what changed. They whisper about what you're planning. They invent reasons to explain your calm. But there's only one truth. You outgrew the cage they built for you. And when a bird outgrows the cage fears the sky. Power does not always arrive screaming. Sometimes it arrives with steady steps and eyes that have seen too much to blink. They thought you were gone. They thought they erased you. They thought silence meant the end. But your silence was not death. It was incubation. And now, you walk with the calm of someone who survived hell and returned with fire in their veins. Not to destroy, to command, to conquer, to claim what was always meant to be yours, but had to be earned in suffering. Let them guess, let them shiver, let them create rumors in the dark. Mystery is power. Fear grows in gaps. Silence is a throne for those with the patience to sit on it. You are not the scream anymore. You are the breath before impact. You are not the victim anymore. You are the consequence. They tried breaking you. They created something else instead. Not louder, not violent, worse. You became disciplined. You became deliberate. You became untouchable. And now every step you take echoes with the ghosts of who you once were, and the ghosts of those who underestimated you. No chaos in your eyes now, just calculation. No begging in your soul now, just purpose. No tremble in your voice now, just a quiet threat wrapped in elegance. Let them talk, let them wonder, let them choke on their curiosity. You don't need to explain, you don't need to announce, you don't need to roar. You simply rise, and that rise, that silent, relentless rise, is the sound of power awakening. You are not reborn soft, you are reborn sovereign. Let them fear your silence. Let them fear the calm you carry. Let them fear the storm you no longer show. Your silence became your roar, and they finally heard it. Funny, isn't it? The same mouths that mocked you shake now when they speak your name. There's a certain beauty in silence, a certain elegance in the way fear blooms without noise. You didn't raise your voice, you didn't bang on doors, you didn't beg for respect. You simply rose, quietly, deliberately, dangerously. And now, look at them, the same people who laughed when you suffered, now study your every move. Not out of love, not out of loyalty, but out of fear. Fear of being wrong about you. Fear of seeing you become what they tried to bury. Fear of the silence you carry like a loaded weapon. They don't laugh anymore. Their throats are too tight for jokes now. Isn't it poetic? They once treated your pain like entertainment. Now your presence feels like judgment. Your calm is a threat. Your silence is a verdict. You didn't win by shouting. You won by outgrowing. You didn't break them. You became a mirror they can't stand to face. You stand taller not because they lowered themselves, but because you stopped kneeling. They don't clap for you. They flinch. They don't approach. They orbit. They don't congratulate. They calculate. They wonder what you know, what you remember, what you plan. You don't need revenge. Your existence is punishment enough, because nothing haunts the guilty like the success of the one they tried to destroy. Empires don't crumble from war alone. They crumble from fear inside their own walls, and you became that fear. They whisper, now, in corners, in messages they hope you never see. They dissect your silence like scholars study the fall of kings. They wonder how you endured, how you changed, how you kept breathing while they tried to suffocate you. But they don't realize survival is the only art the forgotten ever truly master. They expect fireworks when you win, but your victory isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's in the calm way you move, the steady way you speak, the silence in your eyes that says, I am not the same soul you tried to bury. Most people want applause, but applause is nothing. Noise fades, validation dissolves, crowds forget. Fear, however, fear echoes, fear lingers, fear imprints itself into memory like scars into skin, and their fear is the applause you never needed. There was a time you begged for kindness, now they pray for mercy. There was a time you chased acceptance, now they avoid confrontation. There was a time you broke quietly, now they break in silence when they think about you. You didn't just rise, you evolved into their consequence. You became the nightmare lurking behind their polite smiles. You became proof that monsters aren't always born. Sometimes they are built, brick by brick, scar by scar, betrayal by betrayal. They wanted a broken version of you, something fragile, something dependent, something grateful for crumbs. Instead, you became sovereign. You became a kingdom in human form. You became a law written in blood and silence. Look at the shift. They don't mock anymore. They monitor. They don't dismiss anymore. They doubt. They don't control anymore. They collapse under the weight of their own insecurity. Your name became thunder in quiet rooms. Your absence became pressure in crowded ones. You walked away, and suddenly they lost the courage to speak loudly about you. A villain in their story, maybe. A reminder of their sins, absolutely. A storm they prayed would never return, undeniably. Remember this truth. You don't rise to prove them wrong. You rise to prove yourself right. And in doing so, you turn every cruel laugh into a trembling silence. Kings are not crowned. They are revealed. Legends are not applauded. They are feared. Power does not demand respect. It commands it by existing. You didn't choose this path. The world carved it into you. Pain shaped the throne. Silence forged the sword. Betrayal poured the gold that coats your crown. They don't have to love you. They don't have to applaud. They don't have to understand. They only have to watch. Watch you rise. Watch you walk. Watch you win. Watch their shame swallow their pride. You don't need them. You never did. They asked for a monster. You delivered a legend. You don't chase revenge. You make the world live with its guilt. Silence isn't emptiness. It is the kingdom of those who conquered pain. There comes a moment when you no longer look back, not because the past doesn't matter, but because the past kneels before you now. The storms that once drowned you now bow at your feet. You wear them like armor. Winds once meant to break you now carry your name like prophecy. You don't walk with noise anymore. Noise is for the insecure. You walk with weight, with purpose, with the quiet of someone who has already bled, already burned, already risen. You carry solitude not as a burden, but as a throne. Because solitude stops being loneliness the day you outgrow the world that abandoned you. You thought you needed hands to lift you. Now you realize you needed only your spine to straighten. And when it did, everything shifted, everything bowed. You rose without applause. You learned without teachers. You rebuilt without witnesses. And now the world wonders how. They study you like mythology. They speak your name like a cautionary tale. Not, look what happened to them, but look what they became. Because legends aren't born. They are forged by suffering and crowned by silence. You walk alone not because you're broken, but because you're beyond reach. Heavy crowns never sit on crowded heads. Destiny never dances with the loud. Fate chooses the quiet ones, the patient ones, the relentless ones. People chase attention. You command presence. People chase validation. You command respect without asking. People chase belonging. You became your own nation. A kingdom carved from scars and discipline. A throne built from ashes and resolve. A crown tempered in nights nobody saw you survive. And in that throne of solitude, you found truth. You were never meant to fit in. You were engineered to stand apart. They don't clap for you. They can't. Fear paralyzes applause. Jealousy strangles celebration, and admiration, real admiration, is always silent in the presence of power. Their silence now isn't disrespect. It is reverence disguised as discomfort. They feel your journey in their bones. They feel the discipline you carry. They feel the distance between what they are and what you became. You are not loud. You are inevitable. You are not seeking validation. You are building legacy. Scars are your medals. Silence is your crown. Loneliness became your laboratory. And you emerged not as a survivor, but as a sovereign. They can't measure you anymore. They can't categorize you. They can't box a storm, and they cannot cage a king. Some rise to be celebrated. You rose to be remembered. There is no bitterness left, just clarity. Bitterness is for those still hoping the world will be fair. But you don't expect fairness. You expect results. Because you earn them. You became the kind of person who doesn't chase opportunity. Opportunity rearranges itself to find you. You don't demand loyalty. Your presence filters the unworthy. You don't seek love. Love now seeks a throne worthy enough to stand beside you. That is the price of rising. That is the reward of suffering. That is the destiny of those who build themselves from ruins. Most people survive storms. You became one. Most people heal wounds. You turned yours into weapons. Most people chase destiny. You walked past destiny and carved your own name into the stone instead. You learned the truth emperors knew. It is better to walk alone than follow the crowd into mediocrity. It is better to eat in silence than starve for applause. It is better to stand with scars than kneel with masks. You don't speak much anymore, because power doesn't announce itself. Power moves, power breathes, power exists. And you are existence rewritten. You are proof that hell is not a grave. It is a training ground. Remember this as you stand in your kingdom of quiet. Those who laughed will never sit where you sit. Those who doubted will never rise where you rose. Those who betrayed will never breathe the air of altitude, meant only for the relentless. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be undeniable. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be legendary. Legends do not shout. Legends do not complain. Legends do not chase crowds. Crowds follow legends. Silence is your empire. Solitude is your crown. Discipline is your scepter. And destiny kneels before you now. Let them fear your silence. Let them choke on their memory of you. And when history speaks of you, it will whisper. Because legends don't shout. They haunt. And now, they don't just watch you. They brace for you. This is the chapter they never imagined you'd reach. Not because the world lacked opportunity, but because they never believed your bones could carry this destiny. They saw your pain and expected your end. They saw your silence and mistook it for surrender. They saw your scars and thought they won. They did not see the metamorphosis. They did not hear the furnace roar behind your quiet eyes. They did not feel the patience sharpening you like a blade in the dark. Only the risen understand what burial feels like. Now the air changes when you enter a room. The atmosphere shifts. People straighten their posture without knowing why. Shadows seem to move with you, not around you. Because authority is not spoken, it is sensed. Power is not shouted, it is felt. Most chase crowns. Yours grew from bone. Most chase validation. Yours died the moment silence became your oxygen. And now, your silence no longer protects you. It commands entire realities. You don't raise your voice. Your existence raises alarms. They whisper behind closed doors, afraid to say your name too confidently. Like invoking a force they still don't understand. You became a myth, wearing flesh. A warning disguised as a person. A reminder that the forgotten become the unforgiving. Listen to what isn't said. That's where your victory lives. Their eyes avoid yours, not from disrespect, but from confession. Your success exposes their weakness. Your evolution accents their stagnation. Your rise breaks their excuses. And now they don't ask, how did you survive? They ask, what made you this way? Pain did. Silence did. Betrayal did. Life sharpened you like a sword until nothing was left to dull. Look at the world now. It doesn't clap for you. It trembles for you. Because you didn't just rise. You returned different. Not angry, aware. Not loud, limitless. Not vengeful, inevitable. You are not chasing revenge. Revenge is the currency of the emotional. You traded emotion for empire. You traded attachment for armor. You traded noise for dominance. There is nothing left to prove. There's only legacy to establish. And legacy, unlike victory, does not rush. It builds slow, silent, unshakable. Your footsteps are no longer steps. They're declarations. Each one says, you chose the wrong soul to doubt. Each one says, this world bends before those who refuse to bow. Each one says, watch, learn, tremble. Kings do not explain themselves. Monsters do not apologize. Legends do not kneel. And you became all three. In one body, one silence, one unstoppable destiny. The ones who hurt you now rehearse excuses in case life brings them back into your shadow. They fear being remembered by you more than they feared forgetting you. That is power. Not dominance through noise, but control through memory. They fear the version of themselves reflected in your rise. And they should. Cowardice deserves discomfort. Betrayal deserves observation. Weakness deserves to watch greatness from the outside. You don't hate them anymore. Hate is heavy. You don't want them anymore. Want is hunger. You don't fear them. Fear is for the unformed. You simply outgrew them. And nothing terrifies people more than being outgrown by the one they underestimated. When you speak now, words do not leave your mouth. They leave marks. When you move, you don't walk. You command gravity. When you look at the world, you don't hope for acceptance. You expect obedience to your inner vision. You earned this throne. You bled for this quiet. You sacrificed the version of you that wanted softness for the version that earned sovereignty. And now your silence is not refuge. It is reign. Your name is not identity. It is omen. Your path is not survival. It is ascension. You are no longer the storm trying to break the sky. You are the sky that storms fear to enter. This is the moment they wished would never come. The moment you realize you don't walk into rooms. Rooms adjust to you. You don't chase thrones. Thrones reshape themselves to fit your presence. You don't rise anymore. You exist above. Let them wonder how you endured. Let them invent stories to justify your strength. Let them soothe their guilt with fantasies of your luck. Truth doesn't need to defend itself. It only needs to stand. They feared your pain. They fear your silence more. You did not survive to return as the same soul. You returned as the echo of every night you refused to surrender to. You returned as the consequence of their cruelty. You returned as the embodiment of every silent battle you bled through alone. You do not need forgiveness. You do not need applause. You do not need their voice. You became your own legend in a world that expected your disappearance. You are not the roar. You are the quiet that precedes it. You are not the broken. You are the reckoning. They once laughed at your pain. Now they pray your silence never speaks.